Howdy, folks. So I don't think I've ever shared my story with you, maybe bits and pieces of it, but not the whole thing in its entirety. And this is, if you don't have time or if you're not interested, you probably want to skip this. But I think a lot of you are going to see you in my story. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. So you can identify with not being the only one and knowing that there is hope no matter how long you've been in your medical situation or a health crisis or whatever you want to call it. And the part about my story that, for me at least, is more frustrating is because I was a clinician and I spent years being a sick clinician who could not fix myself, but I could fix other people. And I'm not talking about from a consulting standpoint like I do now. I'm talking about in the trenches, bedside, critical care patients, ventilators, medication pumps, and really just keeping these folks alive. And I used to do emergency medicine. You know, you scoop in, you land on an interstate, you put the person or the patient in your helicopter and you go to the top of the hospital and you go down into the ER. Essentially, you're stabilizing life. I'm sorry, you're saving life. And then that transition to, it's called a tertiary care, where I went into critical care where you're essentially sustaining it. Because critical care folks, they're usually really sick. But like I said, that was a whole nother level of frustration for me being sick because I could help all these other people, but I couldn't help myself. And it happened, it certainly didn't happen overnight. It happened in a way that I thought was strictly initially the result of my job, because when you fly on a medical jet at 40,000 feet for thousands and thousands and thousands of miles per week, your physiology changes a little bit. You become essentially chronically dehydrated, and flight crew are known for intentionally dehydrating before a flight. And we're talking all over North America, United States, which is North America obviously, but Canada, US, Mexico, Venezuela, I mean, North America and South America. And if you're at 40,000 feet for hours, you really have no place to go to the bathroom. I mean, on a few occasions, you figure out a way because you got to go. But that was not a regular occurrence. So chronically dehydrated can look like a lot of different things, and you feel it, but you also see it in labs. But where I noticed symptoms initially was, and first let me share the background of how my schedule worked. I was a week on the road in a different hotel every single night. And that could have been all in the United States. It could have been United States and Mexico. You know, you're traveling and then you get to your destination, you stay overnight, you get up early and you do the thing again. So not only are you traveling thousands of miles, but you're crossing time zones, which is incredibly challenging. And you know what I mean if you're a traveler that has ever been to another country, and not necessarily in the same time zone, but if you cross the pond or you go to Australia, that is a significant physiological change in your body when you're at that altitude for that long. So it was coming to the end of my shift. We had been on the road for a week. This was day 7. And the way it worked was sometimes we did a flight on day 7, sometimes we didn't, depending on if there were any available to do. And this was a very short flight. It was from Oklahoma to wherever it was. So we woke up that morning. There was 2 med crew and there's 2 pilots. I, of course, was one med crew. And I woke up that morning. I showered, put my flight suit on, went downstairs. We were going to eat breakfast, go to the airport. And I showered, got in the elevator, went downstairs with all my luggage, not all my luggage, but my stuff. And as soon as the elevator doors opened, I was like, this is weird. I felt dizziness and a little bit of vertigo. And from a medical standpoint, there is a difference. But I couldn't figure it out. Got on the flight. Didn't know if I was going to be able to do the flight because with that came slight nausea. Got on the flight, did the flight, went home, or I'm sorry, went to the commercial airport to get on a commercial jet, go home, and I started feeling worse. Somehow made it home without getting violently ill on the plane. And I spent that entire week trying to figure things out because the vertigo kind of came and went, but I had other symptoms crop up, one of which was explosive chronic diarrhea. I mean, I couldn't stop it when I thought there was nothing left inside of me. And I think I had lost, in that week before I went back to work, I think I'd lost like 7 pounds, which is not really, I mean, it's not muscle, it's not tissue or bone or fat. It's mostly water weight and stool. But so what we're going to do now is I'm going to tell you from that moment, this was ongoing. Not only those symptoms, they waxed and waned, but I had others such as spiderweb feelings on my skin, mostly my right leg. And I had visual disturbances, which kind of went along with the vertigo and dizziness, but sometimes they were together, sometimes they weren't. And one day I was at home and I woke up and I had tinnitus in my right ear. And I thought, this is weird. And I'm not really one of those people that goes to the doctor. I can pretty much figure it out myself. And after a couple of weeks, it was persistent. So I went to an ENT and he said, well, with your job, because I had been in helicopters my entire professional life. And now, several years later, I'd been in jets for up until that point. So years and years of constant environmental noise that could absolutely contribute to tinnitus. And you do the audiogram and yep, I had hearing loss, which is normal. And in that industry, you go through constant audiograms. Every year you have to have a hearing test. If you didn't have hearing loss, it was just impossible not to. So I don't really think too much about that. This was months after my initial symptoms. And most of them got better. And then I started having mood disturbances. And keep in mind, guys, I was a kid who had pretty much a perfect childhood. I was never bullied. I was never abused, not by anyone outside of my family or within my family. I had an older brother. He was cool. Nothing. Textbook family situation. So no mental illness that I knew of in my family. That includes my parents and grandparents. And I was having these really weird, uncontrollable thoughts. Not suicidal, but just weird shit that you can't really explain. And I remember being in a hotel room in Boston. We had dropped a patient off at Boston General and went to the hotel room, and I was kind of just winding down from the flight. And I remember thinking, something is wrong. And I started having this feeling that I needed to peel my skin off. Not from a schizophrenia, pick my skin off and peel, but like I was so uncomfortable in my skin and I couldn't, am I even recording? Oh my goodness. Yeah. That I couldn't get out of my skin, but needed to. And then I kind of started doing that whole rocking back and forth thing. And it was almost like a nervous tick. And I've worked in mental health, and I was exhibiting signs of someone with a mental illness. And it was pretty much instant, if you will. And I remember having the thought, maybe I should kill myself, or maybe I will. And then I thought, no, because that's not me. I had no out of the norm issues, and I wasn't on any type of mental illness medication. And to me, I had to bring in my critical care and rational thought process, like, okay, this is not me. Something is going on. Somehow I got out of that, made it home, and was okay for, and again, I had symptoms that I just really couldn't figure out what the root cause, because they were all arbitrary, not seemingly connected, and they would crop up at various times. And I was very methodical about, what is this symptom? What was I doing just before it happened? Did I do anything to fix it? And how long was I symptom free, and how long did that last? And did that symptom repeat itself? So very methodical in note taking and trying to figure out what was going on. And I'm going to guess that this was probably close to a year now. And within that year, especially when I started to have the dizziness and the tinnitus, I thought, well, there are certain things in the body that can have an effect, obviously, on other parts of the body. So let me just go see my nurse practitioner and see what she thinks. And by the way, I was also having, and I am crazy fit. I am 5'9", I'm 145 pounds. I'm super lean, and my diet was spot on. And nothing should have been wrong. Nothing. And I went to her, and she's like, well, let's just do some labs. And I did normal labs anyway, because I was on hormone replacement therapy. So we did the labs, and there were a few things that were in the red, but if you've heard any of my stuff, you know that if you're not within normal limits, if the numbers are red instead of within normal limits, I don't put a whole lot of faith in that. I mean, because you have to put context to the out of reference range numbers. And by context, I mean, what was going on? Was I stressed? Did I have some sort of environmental or nutritional insult that I wasn't aware of? Just, there's all sorts of variables that can affect who you are and how your body works. And I didn't think a whole lot about it when she was telling me things were out of the norm. And I think I was going to mention, but maybe I didn't, I had blood pressure issues. I've never had blood pressure issues, ever. And it was all over the place, mostly high. And on occasion, it would manifest as orthostatic hypotension, meaning when you're laying down, you've all had this. When you lay down and you immediately sit up, you get dizzy and you kind of go black a little bit. That's orthostatic hypertension, meaning your body sits up so fast that the blood drains and your blood vessels aren't contracting or expanding fast enough to meet the demand that your body presented to it by sitting up. So all the blood drains from your head and you get dizzy. That had never happened to me before. And then you think about what I'm telling you here. I had a gut issue. I had short-term mental issues going on. I didn't even mention this, I had occasional shortness of breath, and my labs were out of whack, my sodium potassium balance, my thyroid was out of whack, and other things. And I was having these, we call them in the medical world, FLBs, funny little beats. And I wasn't on any medication, and according to my labs and my practitioner and me, I really didn't see the need for that. But I'm probably in a year and a half at this point trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And from the moment that I had symptoms and decided, okay, there's something here, because nothing I'm doing is consistently maintaining my symptom-free status. Nothing. So with the help of my nurse practitioner, we decided, and by the way, yes, she put me on thyroid medication. We decided to run some extensive, expensive testing. Dutch urine panels, detox pathway test, mitochondrial damage test, hormone test, stool testing. And guys, these tests are not what your average person, clinician that manages your day-to-day life and symptoms and health issues knows what to do with. I mean, these are incredibly specialized tests that really dive deep into detox pathways and mitochondrial damage and metabolism and how everything is connected together. And what's really interesting is not one of these tests could you get not all of the tests could you get from one lab or prescribed through one practitioner. You had to go to specialty people like Genova Diagnostics stool test, which used to be Great Smoky's lab. All they do are stool tests, and it's an $800 test. Nobody else does those tests. You have to get it from them. An HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis test. Nobody does that. You have to go to all these different labs or practitioners to get a test, and then you have to find somebody to diagnose you based on reading the test. Nobody knew how to read the test. They could read the test according to the PDF instructions that accompanied the test, which is worthless. That's like reading your TSH level and your thyroid and saying, oh, you're hypothyroid because the paper here says you are. That's why all of you end up on thyroid medication, because your practitioner has no idea how to integrate TSH, T3, T4, and zinc and ferritin and selenium and how all of these other accompanying minerals and tests affect thyroid levels. So for them to blindly put you or even me on a thyroid medication when you may not even need it, it's not malpractice, but it's an inability to understand system analysis. And you and I, we are a system, a very complex system where everything is connected. So for them or anyone to try to diagnose a patient with especially acute situations are a little bit easier. Acute meaning right now it happened, like, oh my God, I just had a cramp in my, my bicep tendon or in my gut or whatever. But when you have chronic conditions, nobody knows what to do with that. So you're going to specialist after specialist after specialist. But the problem with that is a specialist is a specialist in what they specialize in, not all systems collectively. So what is the point? Whatever they find based on what their specialty is what they're going to treat you on. Well, what about all this other stuff that's going on? That's called cognitive dissonance. That's like whatever political party you subscribe to, you're going to watch videos and look at the news based on the side that supports what you believe. So therefore, everything you believe is true because the side that you support is all the evidence that you find. Really? Guys, I had to figure this out on my own. I had to figure me out on my own when nobody else could. Nobody else could. How did I do it? And we're talking 2 years, maybe 2.5 years of still trying to care for patients in a clinical care setting. And now that I look back on it, my partner, who is the most incredible human and nurse I've ever worked with, he is absolutely brilliant. And I'm not talking just from I know how to be a nurse standpoint. I'm talking about when you're in critical care, you have to have a third degree of understanding about how systems work. So when you receive care from another facility and this patient is going downhill when you've got them, it's not a matter of just tweaking an IV flow, KVO to wide open. It's no. And the thing about it is, guys, when you're in that situation, you have to make life-threatening, immediate life-threatening, potentially life-threatening or altering or changing decisions right now. You have to make a decision right now. More so on the emergency side than the chronic critical care side, but nevertheless, medicine is medicine. How did I do it? I gathered all of my tests. I gathered all of my symptoms. And up until this point, 2 years, I had documented meticulously what was going on with me. Meticulously. And I have a 3-ring the metal rings in my notebook are this big to hold all of the papers and the labs and the tests and the notes and the very methodical testing and what is going on with me and the deep dives that I did on my week off at home. It just led me down another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole. And I kind of started to think, well, maybe it could be this one thing because everything was pointing that way. And I remember going down a rabbit hole which is very, very uncommon, but it fit with all of the symptoms that I had, which was a mitochondrial deficiency / damage based on a B6 deficiency. People are like, what the hell is that? I have no idea. There's one test in the entire country, one lab and one test that will diagnose that. And I thought, and I knew, and before that I had documents of people in the same symptoms as me in forums saying, oh my God, I had this and this and couldn't figure it out. And I went to this lab and got this test, and sure enough, started taking a supplement after I was shown to have a B6 deficiency, and that was it. Well, guess what? My B6 deficiency was non-existent. But what did I do? I took a B6 supplement anyway that was wrapped in phospholipids, which is a fat which enables the B6 to be delivered to the tissue and organs that it needs to be delivered to, just in case. But that didn't work. And I laid all of my tests out, and this was over the course of months. It took me to do that. It took me to do this, and it was time consuming, hours and hours each day. What test? What was going on when I decided to have the test? And I'd previously mentioned this. What kind of interventions? What type of results did I get, or side effects? Or did I feel better after those interventions? How quickly did the symptoms come? How quickly did they go? Did I have any new symptoms? Meticulous documentation over months and years. And I felt like I was dying and nobody could help me. Then I had a light bulb. One day reviewing these tests, I had saved something because I was a voracious reader, and I remember saving something that had to do with mineral derangement. And that was the one and I'm not talking about a magnesium deficiency or your potassium is off. That's not what I'm talking about. And it's very scientific, and I won't go into that, but I remember those specific words, mineral derangement, because I looked at this. This was a HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis, which is you underneath your hair, you cut samples and you send them off, and you get the labs back. And when I initially got the labs back, or the results back, I should say, nothing really jumped out at me. Nothing that could explain my heavy A to Z symptom burden. Nothing. So I kind of put the test down, went about, and then I remember the words mineral derangement. So I started doing some additional digging, looking for that document that talked about mineral derangement. because the symptoms that I was having were conducive, part of them were conducive to mineral derangement. And I found the document and I thought, this is it. Guys, what I had, and it immediately connected all the dots. It connected the stool test to the HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis test, to the Dutch urine test, which tells how well your estrogen hormones are working and your detox pathways are working, and your phase 1 and your phase 2 liver and your cholesterol, and then the mitochondrial damage. All of these things immediately, it was a light bulb in my head. It connected the dots. All of these tests that a clinician could independently look at and read based on the instruction PDF that came with it. Well, I can do that. All I have to do is look at the test. But that didn't explain anything to me. So when I started connecting all of these dots, they all pointed to mineral derangement. But why did I have mineral derangement? What is the one substance that connects all of these tests to all of my symptoms, which result in mineral derangement, funny little beats, mood disturbances, and it was heavy metal poisoning, specifically mercury. And you're going to say, oh, I'm going to go out and order a hair mineral test because it's going to stop. The reason, and I certainly advocate you getting a hair mineral test, but if you don't know how to read it, just like me, you're going to look at it and go, well, nothing wrong here. You have to know how to read it because there's 2 sections to a HTMA. The top section with all the poison shit, the aluminum, the mercury, the cadmium, the barium, the strontium, and everything else. And then there's the bottom with all of the minerals. Well, that test, the sodium, the potassium, all the other minerals and labs that you would typically see on a blood test were completely exactly the opposite. The opposite. One was up, this one was down. If this one was up, this one was down. It made no sense because there was mineral derangement. And what that means is mercury crosses the blood-brain barrier and it wrecks your gut. It causes mineral derangement, meaning what I just explained to you. Your minerals look fine here, but they're not here. And if you look here on the hair tissue test, the normal balance between sodium and potassium, this is the normal range. And if you're even one outside of that range, you're having a sudden cardiac event or you're having cramps or you're having something. But to be completely, totally opposite and still have a heartbeat is unheard of. That's called mineral derangement. This is normal-ish. This is not. And this is what I had. That was mineral derangement. That's what mercury does. There's so much more to the story, guys. But that gave me hope to know just enough to believe there was a way out. Just enough. What ended up happening was I found a forum online. It was a heavy metal burden / poisoning group. And that group probably saved my life because there is a certain way. And by the way, every single symptom that I said to you and the ones that I didn't share with you were validated by that group. because my symptoms may not manifest the way yours do. How I believe that I got mercury poisoning was, as a kid, dentist used mercury fillings. You know, the silver fillings? If you're old enough, you may still have some, and you're going to say, oh, Cameron, I don't feel bad. It's like, do you? Do you have aches and pains and phantom things that you can't explain and there's no reason for it? Your body's not designed to feel bad. It's not, even when it ages. Simple as that. Just because you don't have mercury or silver fillings doesn't mean that you are not heavy metal poisoned. We are medicated, we are sedated, we are irradiated, we're vaccinated, we are fluoridated, we're indoctrinated, we're cosmeticated, and we're glyphosated. Every single one of those things I mentioned have heavy metals in them. Now more than ever. And by the way, a lot of us are constipated. That's because metals wreck your gut. That's why you cannot out-eat, out-supplement, out-exercise, out-RX, prescription, anything you've got going on if your gut is trashed. And if you have a heartbeat, I'm betting there's room for improvement in your gut. And I hear it now. A lot of you, oh, I feel fine. There's nothing going on with me. I would really encourage you that if this sounds like you, I just want to tell you, I see you because I was you, and there is a way out. And I will encourage each and every one of you to think about what you're putting in your body, which includes prescriptions, because your body is not deficient in any prescription. I don't care what it is. When you give your body the proper foundation for extraordinary health, it's going to provide that to you. And that will never happen with your current diet, your current lack of exercise, and the prescriptions that you're swallowing every day. It will not happen. That I can promise you with 100% certainty. 100%. And there's not many things in this life that are 100% certainty. Guys, I share my story with you for two reasons. As previously stated, if this sounds like you, I see you because I was you. There is a way out. And secondly, there is somebody out there that can help you. Whether that's me or someone else, that's up to you. But you do not need to suffer. You do not need to be reliant on pills. For whatever it is, if it's weight loss or depression or pain or cholesterol especially, and cardiac. I'm not saying get off your meds. I'm saying there's a better way. But first and foremost, you have to be willing to do what's uncomfortable. And that probably is going to be very simply, it's simple, but it's not easy. And that's the admission that the healthcare system is not here to cure you. They are not. They are not here to fix you because there's no money in that. There is money in what I said before, being medicated and irradiated and sedated and indoctrinated and all those other things I said, all of them. Because all of those things equal sickness. Pay attention to your body. Pay closer attention to the things that you put your body through. Environmental exposure, nutritional exposure. And if you're tired of it, then do something about it, because I can promise you it ain't getting no better. Go outside and look at the stripes in the sky. They're spraying that shit on us. There's a class action lawsuit that just came out a few days ago. Yeah, they admit it now. So all of you people that said all of us were conspiracy theorists, it's true. I'm gonna close now, guys. I hope you recognize yourself in the story. Thanks for watching. As always, I'm here to help you, and more importantly, to enhance your critical thinking skills and help you to know that there might be a different way than and a different path than what you're currently on. I love you guys. I will see you very soon. Adopt, don't shop. It will be one of the best things you've ever done. We'll see you soon.